Imagine packing up all your stuff and sailing across a massive ocean to start a new life. That's exactly what thousands of people from Britain did hundreds of years ago. They came to America, a huge, wild land, and built brand new towns and cities from scratch. They called these places the 13 colonies. It was super exciting and a bit scary, kind of like starting a new level in a video game you've never played before. They built their own homes, they grew their own food, they created a whole new way of life. It felt like their own world, an ocean away from their old one. But here's the thing, even though they were thousands of miles away, they were still ruled by the King of Great Britain. At first, this wasn't a massive deal. The king mostly left them to their own devices. The colonists felt British, sure, but they also felt like something new, Americans. They were proud of what they had built with their own hands, and they liked making their own decisions. This feeling of being independent in their day-to-day lives was super important to them, and they got used to it. Then things started to change. Back in Britain, the king and his government got into a big, expensive war with France. Wars cost a shed-load of money, and once it was over, the king was a bit strapped for cash. He looked across the ocean at the American colonies, which were doing pretty well, and thought, aha, they can help me pay my bills. Suddenly, he started introducing all these new rules and, you guessed it, taxes. The colonists had to pay extra for things they used every single day, like sugar, newspapers, playing cards. This really started to get on the colonists' nerves. It wasn't just about the money. The real problem was that they had no say in these new rules. Imagine your parents making a new rule that you have to pay them every time you use your phone, but you don't even get to argue your case. That's how the colonists felt. They had no one to represent them in the British government, which they called Parliament. They came up with a catchy slogan, "No taxation without representation." The king didn't listen. In fact, he doubled down. He sent more soldiers over to America to make sure everyone followed the rules, which just made people even angrier. One of the biggest arguments was over tea. Everyone in the colonies loved a good cuppa. But the king decided they could only buy tea from one specific British company, and he put a tax on it. The colonists were absolutely cheesed off. They felt like they were being treated like little kids who couldn't make their own choices, and they decided they had had enough of it. This led to one of the most famous protests in history, the Boston Tea Party. No, it wasn't a nice little get-together with biscuits and cake. One chilly night in December 1773, a group of colonists in Boston decided to send the king a message he couldn't ignore. They dressed up as Native Americans, snuck onto the British ships loaded with tea in the harbor, and did something properly cheeky. They weren't just having a laugh, they were making a serious point about how unhappy they were with the king's unfair rules and the ridiculous tea tax. With a massive heave-ho, they threw 342 chests of tea straight into the icy water. That's enough tea to make about 18 million cups. The whole harbor turned into one giant salty teapot. This act of defiance was a huge deal. It showed the king that the colonists weren't just going to sit back and take it. They were willing to take big risks to stand up for what they believed in. When news of the Boston Tea Party got back to Britain, the king went spare. He was beyond angry. He called the colonists' actions a disgrace and decided to punish Boston severely. He closed the entire port, which was like shutting down the city's main source of money and supplies. But his plan backfired. Instead of scaring the colonists into behaving, it brought the 13 colonies closer together. They saw that an attack on one colony was an attack on all of them. With everyone feeling united against the king, the smartest people from each colony decided to get together and talk about what to do next. They called this meeting the Continental Congress. It was like the ultimate group chat, but in person and with much fancier clothes. They discussed everything: the unfair taxes, the soldiers in their cities, the king's refusal to listen. They tried one last time to make peace, sending a letter to King George III, but he basically threw it in the bin. A brilliant writer and thinker named Thomas Jefferson was given a very important job: to write a document explaining to the whole world why America wanted to be free. This document became the Declaration of Independence. It wasn't just a list of complaints. It was a powerful and inspiring statement about freedom and rights. It was essentially the world's most epic breakup letter, telling the king, "It's not us, it's you." The Declaration had some really famous lines that are still important today. It said that all men are created equal and that they have the right to life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness.